Syracuse Sports on the internet. Hello, friends. Great to have you back. Presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe, and here on Syracuse Sports, we like to not only talk about the teams that we cover, Syracuse football, Syracuse basketball, Syracuse lacrosse, etc., etc. We like to talk to Syracuse people. And one of my favorite Syracuse people is Noah Eagle, who is about to embark on a big adventure. Now, Noah has already achieved a lot in his young sports broadcasting career. I know another sports broadcaster out of Syracuse, but Noah has actually kind of exceeded even that level. He's called the Super Bowl for Nickelodeon, which was a unique experience. He's the voice of NBC's Big Ten football and all the biggest games that NBC gets. He is now going to embark as one of the primary voices of the NBA on NBC. Right? That's what we think of, that old school theme from the 90s. Mike Tirico is the lead voice, another Syracuse guy. Noah Eagle, Carmelo Anthony is going to be on the NBC broadcast team this year. Ahmad Fareed is going to be on the NBC broadcast team. There's Syracuse people all over this broadcast, but we wanted to focus on Noah going into, now he has called the NBA. He's been the voice of the Clippers. He's done some work for the Brooklyn Nets as well, but being a network NBA announcer, like that's the dream, man. Of course, his father, Ian Eagle, has been doing that. And at the NFL level, and Ian Eagle's called pretty much everything you can think of. And Noah is catching up to him quickly. Noah's called the Olympics for NBC as well. He's an incredible broadcaster. He's an incredible guy, and we just love hearing his story and how he's getting ready to be one of the primary voices to call the NBA and a fascinating person to talk to. So my conversation with Noah Eagle is coming up here shortly, but a couple of reminders for you guys. No Syracuse football postgame show this weekend. This pod's coming out on Friday, October 11th, so we do not have a Syracuse football postgame show coming up this weekend, but stay tuned after Syracuse football games for our live postgame show that's just it right there. As Bill O'Reilly once said, we'll do it live. We go live after every Syracuse football game on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. Now, if you can't listen live, that's why you subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, so you can listen and watch on demand. But we love going live. Basketball season, speaking of which, as we're going to talk about with Noah coming up here just around the corner, and we'll be doing some post-game shows for basketball season as well. But for every Syracuse football game, our Syracuse football live post-game show presented by Krause Health, make sure you guys are tuning in for that. Other reminder is we love to feature your original music here on Syracuse Sports. If you're an independent artist, if you're in a band, we would love to feature your music here on the show. And we're going to do it again today. Max Sheldon, who's a local artist here from Central New York, just sometimes a guy and his guitar, and that's all you need. And he is spectacular. We featured one of his songs prior called 80 Songs, which is a spectacular tune. And today we're going to feature a tune by Max called Hello Blue Skies. So what we'll do is we'll play a little bit of that song leading into our interview with Noah Eagle, and then we'll play the song in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And that is something we can do for you or your band, your original music. Send it in. Now, all the info on how you can get in touch is in the show notes, okay? So check it out there, get in touch, and I can't wait to feature your music on a future episode of Syracuse Sports. And our Syracuse Sports Insiders have been so kind to send in some music that they have done or people that they know that are in great bands or are great original artists. So please, no matter where it comes from, we'd love to feature your original music here on the show. And I guess a third thing there, doesn't hurt to remind you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider to get all the latest inside analysis sent directly from me. Cut through the clutter, cut through the noise of social media, all the latest on Syracuse sports delivered right to your phone. And you can text me anytime. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questions. Certainly during Syracuse games, that text line gets intense. But our growing community of Syracuse sports fans, we had a bunch of insiders go to the Syracuse SMU football game, and they were texting me saying, hey, where are the SU fans hanging out? Where's Texan Mark and his great tailgate? We hooked you up. See, it's not just about talking sports and giving the latest news and analysis and all that stuff, which we certainly do, but insiders helping insiders, right? So please, we'd love for you to join our growing community of some of the more passionate Syracuse sports fans out there. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse sports insider, and the info is right there on your screen, how you can join today. But first, let's listen to Max and a little bit of Hello Blue Skies, and then my conversation with Noah Eagle of NBC Sports. Noah, in a short period of time, you have exemplified that expression, just living the dream, right? You're calling NBA games. You're calling Big Ten football and NBC. You've called the Olympics. You've called a Super Bowl in one of the more unique ways that's ever been done with Nickelodeon, right? But is the adventure you're about to step into, if you answered that question, I'm just living the dream, is that the dream, to call the NBA on a network level as you're about to start doing?
It would certainly be high on the list. And as somebody who grew up with the NBA being amongst sports, at least probably my top passion, it would be hard to say otherwise. The NBA on NBC was synonymous with greatness, of course, Michael Jordan and everything leading into the early 2000s. And I caught the very tail end of it when I was very young. In fact, the last game on NBC before they lost the rights was the Nets losing to the Lakers in the finals. And so I was at that game. You know, I was there. I got to see Bob Costas on the floor doing his final soliloquy, so to speak, sending it to Marv Albert. All of that stuff is still somewhere in the back of my mind, back of my brain. So now to be a part of this relaunch and what is hopefully just an extension and a continuation of what was is special. But it's hard to say that all the other stuff hasn't been exactly on par with it. And I think that's what's made the career so much fun to this point, is every opportunity, whether it's been, to your point, doing a Super Bowl on Nickelodeon, doing Brooklyn Nets games, which is the team I grew up rooting for, or even calling pickleball in a studio. The fact that I get to be on the air and I get to work with some pretty incredible people is the dream in its of itself. So yeah, this is high on the list, but it's just a continuation for me.
You just hit on it. You were there for Costas's last soliloquy there. You said the name Michael Jordan, who is going to be a part of your coverage, by the way, this year. Yeah. There are people that take ownership of this. There are people when they hear that theme song, it just brings something back about a time they cherish in the NBA. And like people my age and right around my age, that just tingles something inside you, right? So I think that was a big push when we heard that NBC was back in the mix here. And people were like, get that theme song back. And there's just a certain thing they tap into. But you also want to take this a step forward as well. So how have you found you're navigating that as you guys get ready for the coverage? Like people are going to expect a certain thing, but hey guys, it's also 2025 and we could do a few more things than we could in 1995.
No, and it's a legitimate question. And I think, well, two things. First of all, obviously Roundball Rock is still a banger.
It's iconic.
That's first and foremost. And SNL, I think, helped it a couple years back with Tim Robinson with basketball. It reintroduced it to a number of maybe kids who had never actually experienced it. With that being said, I think your point is valid. And it's exactly what our ethos have been going into this, which is we want to tap into parts of the nostalgia because we think that's important. And there was so much good of how NBC approached the NBA for so many years. And that's why people were so excited about it coming back. So you don't want to just abandon all of those things. You want to make sure that you still keep a lot of that integrity there. But you also have to make sure that it's modern. You have to make sure that it's fit and tailored to the game in 2025 and 2026 and now an 11-year period moving forward. So I think there's an important blend, and we're going to try to reach that blend. I still don't know entirely what it's going to look like, and I don't know if we'll know until we actually do some games and start to work through everything that maybe is in our head right now. From my perspective, calling the game, I'm going to call the game. And I think that's what was so great about the NBA on NBC from the 90s and early 2000s was, for the most part, you had Marv Albert and then, of course, little Bob Costas calling the action. You had great analysts up and down, both on the game and with their studio show, which a lot of times was on site, especially in the playoffs and NBA finals. And so we're looking at it, myself, Mike Tirico, Michael Grady, Terry Gannon, and all of the fantastic analysts that we have. Reggie Miller, who's now done it for a long time, Jamal Crawford, who has a chance to be an excellent broadcaster, Grant Hill, who, of course, does the Final Four. And then we've got guys in Robbie Hummel and Austin Rivers, who I think are the future of broadcasting at that position. And so that, from my perspective, is not going to be much different. We're going to do the same. From a production standpoint, that's where I think we can get creative. And so it's finding a way to blend the past with the present and the future all together.
Thinking about the storytelling aspect of this in those essays that Bob used to do, that will you and Mike get that opportunity now to do these big intros at the beginning of these games and set the stage?
It's a great question, and I think time will tell. My hope is yes, but I have no entire confirmation on anything until we get there and I sit in the chair. So when that time comes, I will be ready. I'll try to put on my best Bob impression or best Marv impression and let it rip. But the hope is yes. I guess we'll wait and see.
Now, on that note, so over the summer, I read Dick Ebersol's book.
Yeah.
And my big takeaway from that, you're in the NBC family now and you're about to go into the NBA, but you're calling Big Ten football as well. My big takeaway from that was that NBC does not show sports on television. Other networks show sports on television. On NBC, sports is a television show. Have you gotten that feeling too, even doing Big Ten football and starting to plan out things for the NBA and NBC? Because look, Dick Ebersol not only literally wrote this book, he wrote the book on how to do this, right? And he took it from Roone Arledge and from people before him. Of course, the Olympics is the greatest example of that. But I feel like NBC does this in everything they do. Sunday Night Football, you guys, whatever sport they show, this is a TV show. It's not a sport that happens to be on television.
They don't skip a step. You're spot on. And that's what's really stuck out to me starting this job has been everything that they do. It's 100%. Now, I'm curious because there's going to be a lot more properties now than they've had over the last decade plus, probably longer than that, especially since they lost the NHL. But you think about what's going to be on the family of NBC, Peacock, and beyond. It's going to be Sunday Night Football, plus whatever extra NFL games come with that. Big Ten football, which we're always in the primetime show, whether it's Big Ten or Notre Dame. And, of course, Notre Dame home games are all across NBC. And then there's additional Big Ten games that are on Peacock. There's Big Ten, Big East, and Big 12 basketball now, men's and women's. There's NBA, there's WNBA, and then the rumors are Major League Baseball potentially. And so you just think about the sheer amount of content and games and live and everything that comes together. I'm curious to see how that same approach, which we've seen with Sunday Night Football for the last 20 years, will be applied to all of it, because it will be. And of course, I didn't even mention the Olympics, both summer and winter. It's the same application. Everything that I've done with them, whether it was Roland Garros before losing the rights there, whether it was Big Ten football, Notre Dame football, NFL, doing college basketball, it's all the same. In the game that's in front of us is the most important thing. And I think you brought up Sunday night. Two examples from week one this season of Sunday Night Football, which is the Thursday night season opener in Philadelphia, first play of the game. We get a close-up immediately of Jalen Carter spitting on Dak Prescott. That's not common. You're not going to have that shot every single broadcast on every single game on every single network. And then I think the Sunday night game, which I know you were excited about from week one, the Bills comeback over the Baltimore Ravens, the final sequence of shots, and the great Drew Esikoff making it happen, the final sequence of shots after Matt Prater hits the field goal was television excellence, in my opinion. Tirico makes the call. There's silence for probably a good minute and a half. And the shots that we're seeing of the delirious Bills fans in the stands, of Matt Prater, the 41-year-old, getting congratulations from Josh Allen and from Sean McDermott, you don't see that everywhere necessarily. And that's where I think there's a separating factor from an NBC standpoint. And they really treasure those moments. They treasure the sequence of shots they can get. They treasure the close-up on Dak Prescott getting a loogie delivered to him like he's Cosmo Kramer. They treasure the extra bits of information that they can provide. They even went to Melissa Stark with 40 seconds left in the game or less, 35 seconds left in the game, to get the report on Matt Prater taking a red eye to Buffalo. Not everybody is willing to take that risk and go down to a sideline reporter in a tense moment in a game. And so that's where I think NBC, to your point, it started with Dick Ebersol. A lot of credit to Fred Gaudelli, who came in with Sunday Night Football and has continued to expand on those ideas. Rob Hyland, who's now in charge there of Sunday Night Football and really the NFL on NBC in general. Give him a lot of credit for how he's continued to build on what was already built. And they're a really loyal network. So people who start there work there for 30, 35, 40 years. And when you're in that family, you learn their system and you can become a system quarterback pretty quickly.
I heard the other day that Tirico's been at NBC now for 10 years, which in some ways it feels longer than that. In others, it's like, wow, a decade already, just given the amount of things that he does, the Olympics included. And he's the point guard now. Look, you've got a big role. You got Warriors, Lakers opening night, and you're going to be working with some big names. And trust me, you've got a lot on your shoulders. But Tirico is now what Costas was back in the day. And of course, you get asked a lot about your father and following in his footsteps, but Mike Tirico's been there every step of the way as well. And now you get to work side by side with him, but Mike is the lead voice here. So what are the lessons you took from Mike Tirico that you now can literally apply in the same job? It's one thing to get advice from Mike or your dad or people you look up to about where you're going and what you're doing. Tirico's going to be doing the exact same thing you are now. So how do you kind of measure up to that and take the lead from Mike in calling NBA games?
Sure. I think we'll use the football example. Mike's been great to me since before I got to NBC, but certainly since I've gotten there in the last 2+ years, he's been a great sounding board, but more than anything, just a great kind of reminder sometimes where maybe I needed just an extra, hey, this was good, keep doing that. He'll shoot me a text if he's watching our broadcast or paying attention to everything, which he does. And I think what I learned from Mike, and especially football-wise, he always has something ready for any moment. And so the preparation aspect, there are certain things that maybe I've added since being around him and listening to how he calls a Sunday Night Football game that I hadn't done before getting to NBC. That's already the first step. From an NBA perspective, and Mike is very, as you know, his humility is off the charts. And so he's come to me and he's like, dude, you know the NBA. I don't necessarily, because I haven't worked in it in a decade. And I go, you're going to be fine, Mike. You're Mike Tirico. You're going to be okay. It's going to be all good. It's going to sound great. You're going to have great people around you. It's not going to be an issue. But I think for both of us, it's more just the excitement about showcasing the league. And that's really his thing, and NBC's thing is the game is the star. Sure, there are stars on the court, there are stars on the field when you're playing football or on the course when you're doing golf, as he does. But at the end of the day, the game is what is the star for all of us. And if we can push that and make sure that we are properly pushing the right things within the game, then everything takes care of itself. And that's really what I've seen him do since getting there, is making sure that more than anything else, the game is the priority. And if you're serving the game and you're serving its viewers, then you're doing your job at a high level.
Of course, there's going to be a very orange tint to this broadcast with you two, Ahmad Fareed, who is going to be in studio, and this Carmelo Anthony guy that we've heard of, who is going to be in studio. And I'm really looking forward to the perspective he's going to bring and the weight of that name and he's done some interviews and said what he wants to bring to the table. And I feel like he's really intent on doing something different and really getting into, as he put it, talking ball, just X's and O's. Here's what I see from a player perspective, which is of course what you want in studio. But look, we're in an era now where the entertainment aspect of things takes precedent, inside the NBA. Half of that show is just those guys goofing on each other and, pushing Shaq into a Christmas tree, right? As opposed to, and they could talk ball, obviously, when they really need to break it down and do it. Have you had the chance to talk to Carmelo about his role? And if not, and if so, what do you think he's going to bring to the broadcast? What are you anticipating from Carmelo?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to him about his role, but I saw him out in Portland in April for the Nike Hoop Summit, which Cayenne was playing in, and just quickly said what's up and basically said welcome to the family, because we're really glad to have him. And it's exciting to have a player of his stature, obviously, to your point, having the Syracuse connection on top of that. But I am very interested to see what he can bring to the table, because I think what I've learned in just my time doing NBA or basketball and any of that stuff, I think it's great to have perspectives from all different eras now. That's where when we see all of these shows, you see a lot of times guys from the same era agreeing with each other. And so I think now having guys from kind of slightly different eras, where we have Reggie Miller and we've got Grant Hill, but then we also have Jamal Crawford. And then you could go even an era below that with Austin Rivers, and Robbie Hummel played 100 games or so in the NBA around that time. But for Carmelo and Vince Carter, similar-ish eras. Vince got in about 5 years before Melo did. But all that to say, I think that's where it benefits us, and having Tracy McGrady with those guys as well, like Hall of Fame players, all-time great players that can bring their perspective. And I felt this with Dwayne Wade doing the Olympics with him, where he's far enough removed that he's not necessarily uber connected to every single guy that he can't say something negative if it comes to that. But he's also recently enough removed that he still sees the game at such a high level, because he played at the tail end of his career in the more modernized era. And you could say the same for Melo, the same for Vince, who played forever. I think had an AARP card by the time he was still playing his final year in Atlanta. And even for Tracy, he's been on television before. He knows the deal. He knows how it goes. And I think Tracy's willing to say some things. We've seen that from him, which is good. So I think it'll drum up some good discussion between them. But I'm excited for Carmelo. He wanted to do this. And I think that's the biggest thing in all of it is a lot of guys just say, oh, yeah, I'll try it. No, his mentality, from what I've heard, has been, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And so I'm excited to have him. And yeah, we're looking forward to making sure that we get really obnoxious about the Q stuff for sure.
I was going to say, yeah, there's just going to be all kinds of discussion. And if Kion comes in here and look, there's a lot of expectation there, one way or the other. But if he can ball and is improving Syracuse's chances to get to the tournament and creates the buzz that he has the opportunity to do, I mean, it's going to be a lot of people are going to get really tired of all the Syracuse basketball discussion going on in arenas, on the talkback, in the studio, wherever. You can't get away from it. You're just not going to be able to get away from it.
I'll say this. Unfortunate that NBC Indoor Peacock is not going to have any ACC games per se, although if they go on the road and play a Big 10, Big 12, Big East team, I guess it could happen. But Cayenne will have NBC's support. Let's say that. He will certainly have plenty of support on the Peacock family. So we're looking forward to watching him. Excited for this season for Red and those guys.
All right, there's always an inevitable question where we got to reference your dad, but I think in this case, it's literal advice that he could give you because he has gone through this. You're going to be working with a number of color guys on NBC, and you're getting to the point of your career where you're meeting new people, you're on new broadcast teams. Your dad has done this probably better than anybody through the years of taking on new color guys and just developing that chemistry. I mean, I watched some of that broadcast he did with J.J. Watt, and the last thing you would say is that these guys, this is their first day on the job, right? I mean, they did some rehearsals and everything, but that was their first game, and it was seamless, right? How does your dad do that, and how have you started to develop a bond in a relationship with guys that, not only are you meeting and getting to know, but you have to do a national broadcast with? That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I to a certain degree went through it with Dwayne Wade, and he had never called a game period before the Olympics,
That's
and we
right.
had never
Wow.
done a game together before sitting down and doing the Olympics. So the day before our first game, we did one half of a rehearsal game at the site so we could get comfortable in the seat, get an understanding of how the flow of it would go. But most of the guys that are doing this, even Jamal has done enough now where he knows the ins and outs of TV. Reggie's been doing this forever. Grant Hill's been doing this forever. And like I said, Austin Rivers, I got a chance to do a college basketball game with last year. And Robbie Hummel, I've done now probably 30, 40 games with the last 2 years. So I've known Reggie a long time, dating back to my time in LA, because he lived out there. He got assigned a lot of Clipper games because they were on national television a lot when I was the broadcaster there. And for Jamal, he was one of the guys who actually reached out to me after the Olympics just to say how much he enjoyed our coverage. So I think to answer the question, two things I'll say. The first thing I'll say is my dad told me last year, hey, you should start a list of all of the partners that you've had. It's something that he's done through his career, and he really feels like it's great because you just get a sense and you can always look back to say, wow, look at all these people. And so in the 6+ years now that I've been a professional, I think I'm up to 78 partners.
Wow.
And my dad is up to, I think, 200 something partners in his career. And what I've learned from that and what he's kind of given me from that is a lot of it is going to come from a genuine place off the air. So even if you've never talked to a person, Todd Blackledge and I had never done a game before our first game at Penn State 2 years ago. We had spent a couple of days together, one in New York and another one at the NBC Upfronts. And then we were supposed to do a rehearsal game, and I ended up getting called to go to Dublin last second. Well, who do I end up working with in Dublin but Jason Garrett, who I'd never met before? So it was actually this great almost appetizer of, okay, let me figure out how to make sure I work well with this guy. And then the next week I can hit the ground running with another new partner. But yeah, it's a lot of it comes from off air. How much are you guys interacting? Are you sharing experiences together? Robbie and I think that's something that has really benefited us is go to shoot-arounds, and we always get lunch game and always are learning more about each other, what's going on in the other one's lives, things of that nature, talking shop, everything like that. Same deal with Austin when I did the game with him, going to shoot around with him and just messing around. And I was fortunate, I had spent a year with Doc Rivers with the Clippers my first year, so there's an easy connection there. But it was great, and it felt like we could hit the ground running. So I'm excited because I get to add more people to my list, which is always a fun wrinkle to the job. But more than anything, I'm excited because I get to work with great people. And NBC did a great job of putting together a team that should make my job really easy. That's what they've done with Todd Blackledge. They certainly did it with Robbie on college basketball, and now it's going to continue to the NBA.
No, I think the biggest offseason story in the league is what we're talking about here is NBC now is on the coverage. Your dad's going to lead coverage on Amazon. Inside the NBA, what's that going to look like on ESPN? How the sport is presented, I think, was the biggest storyline and will be one of the bigger ones when the season begins. But looking at the storylines in the league as a new season gets ready to dawn here, what's on your mind? What are the things you're most curious about?
Well, I would say who's going to stop Oklahoma City from becoming a dynasty? That's first and foremost. This is a team that is primed, it seems, on paper, to be just a wagon for a long time. You've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not even fully entered into the prime of his career. He's the MVP from last year, finals MVP, dominated through the playoffs. Jalen Williams, I know, just had off-season surgery, and the assumption is that he'll be healthy, but a huge couple of games in the playoffs that helped guide them to the title. Chet Holmgren took a huge step forward in his second season on the court. Eventually, they're going to, because they decided to pay all three of those guys, eventually they're going to lose some of these role players, the Alex Carusos and the Isaiah Hartensteins of the world. But for the time being, this full nucleus is back together. Is there a team that can stop them is, I think, question number one. And if there is a team, I think it's the Denver Nuggets, who my second storyline has to be they got leaps and bounds better this offseason. They were already good, and they were on the precipice last year basically just on the back of Nikola Jokic of beating Oklahoma City in the second round. You could make the argument they were 3 bounces away from winning that series in 6 games, not even going to a 7th game. And they did it with Michael Porter Jr. playing with one shoulder and Aaron Gordon playing on a popped hamstring, and Jamal Murray playing pretty beaten down as well. And Nikola Jokic is just so incredible that they still almost won that series. Well, what do? You flip Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson, who is the perfect fit for what they like to do. You bring back Bruce Brown, who was a key piece to their title team a couple seasons ago, and you add Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench. You add Jonas Valanciunas now as a backup center. They are markedly better than what they were last year. And the same deal for Houston. They are markedly better now with Kevin Durant having a real fourth quarter go-to bucket getter. Combine him with Alperen Şengün, who I think is arguably one of the most underrated guys in the league, despite being an all-star, and the continued growth of Amen Thompson. They are scary. And the Clippers, even with everything going on, are going to be scary. Now with the additions of Bradley Beal, if they're healthy, and that's a big if, but Bradley Beal, Brook Lopez, Chris Paul, talk about AARP cards, they'll have them. But if they're on the court and they're whole, they're really good, and they're going to be really tough defensively again. The Lakers now have a full season of Luka Doncic, who's in shape. The Golden State Warriors have a full season with Jimmy Butler, who's in shape, and Steph Curry, who's in shape. And this is just in the Western Conference, and I haven't even mentioned the rest of the teams like Memphis, who, with John Morant, anything is possible. Minnesota's been to back-to-back Western Conference finals. San Antonio has Victor Wembanyama on their team, and now they have the number 2 overall pick, and they have a full season of De'Aaron Fox and a full season of Stephon Castle continuing to develop. They're going to be really good. So this is all just Western Conference. The second part of this is the East is so wide open. And if you're a team that's even in the realm, now's your time to try to strike. If you're the New York Knicks, now's the time to strike. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, now's the time to strike. If you're the Orlando Magic, we saw it. Now's the time to strike. You go make the trade for Desmond Bane and pay him and feel like you've got your big 3 moving forward, which they certainly do. Arguably a big 4 if Jalen Suggs can be healthy and take another step. Go down the list. Detroit Pistons. This is your time to strike. We saw what they did last year, but you don't know if you're ever going to have an opportunity as good as this one. And so I'm really excited because I think the parity of the league is probably in the best place it's been, just in terms of how the conferences are set up, so respectively what they're going to look like. And we're just excited we get to show it. So looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. And I think we should have some really good games all year.
I know the Nets guy would probably grit his teeth saying this, but you can acknowledge this. There is nothing like when the New York Knicks are good.
Sure.
I happened to be in the New York area when they were going to that playoff run. I was covering lacrosse of all things at Hofstra. And even on Long Island, you could feel it. People watching the game. I was in a hotel, people just screaming and yelling, watching at the hotel bar in their rooms. Just like the energy of the Knicks making a playoff run was incredible. So the fact that they're back, but to hear you describe like all those teams in the West, even if the Knicks find their way, and the Pacers actually gave Oklahoma City a punch in the nose, don't get me wrong. But if the Knicks find their way there, man, like that laundry list of teams you just went over that they would have to get over is incredible. And it just shows you the strength of the league. And it's funny how some years it first, obviously in the Jordan years with the Pistons and the Knicks with Patrick Ewing, and you go down the list, it tilted east. Now it is absolutely tilted west, but still some teams in the East that, as you said, have an opportunity here to at least get in the mix. Cleveland, New York, and some of those other teams you noted. But sorry to make the Nets guy acknowledge the Knicks, but I don't know. It's just different, man. It's just different when the Knicks are good and Spike Lee sitting courtside during the playoffs.
Yeah, well, Timothée Chalamet's coming for that crown, I would say.
That's right. He's the big guy now. Yeah, I got to relate to the kids here. I should say him. Yeah.
Everything that you're saying is correct. I live in Manhattan, and during the run last year, walking the streets during the games, it was a different level of intensity, energy, and enthusiasm that hadn't been felt in a long time, really these last 2 years. And so I get it, and it is a huge opportunity for them. But as said, now your point is valid about the Western Conference teams. The team that gets through will be favored against whoever wins the East. It's just going to be how it is. The one thing I will say, and you brought up Indiana will still be good, by the way. even
Yeah,
without
exactly. Yeah.
Halliburton for the year. And you could argue Boston would have a chance. I think Boston's going to be one of those interesting teams that they'll assess where they are come December and then make decisions from there. But more than anything, I think you have to look at how the finals ended up playing out. Game 7, Tyrese Halliburton ends up going down, and that changes everything. You could say the same about Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. Steph Curry goes down in that series in the second round and changes everything. If he stays healthy, who knows what happens? And so for an Eastern Conference team, if you stay healthy, you get to the finals and you're up against a battered team, it's there for the taking. And I think that's what we've noticed in the NBA is the healthiest teams are the ones that usually come out on top. And Oklahoma City was that this year.
No, a final thing for me to shift over to Big Ten football. We're in an era now. I cover it every day here in Syracuse, and you experience this and going to all these big-time Big Ten matchups. We talk about NIL, and we talk about the transfer portal and how the feel of college football, at least on the outside looking in, doesn't feel like college anymore. It's a professional operation. But you know what? When that ball kicks off, it still feels like college football. So for all the hand-wringing about the money and everything going on, you're in these big-time environments every Saturday. I don't think that I don't want to speak for you here, but I don't think the thought in your mind is like, man, this is an NFL game. No, there is a difference between what your father does in the National Football League and what you're doing in Big Ten football. And I've said that all along. For all the people that were being critical of these things happening, and there's certain valid reasons to be critical of what's happening, like you're still going to go to the games to have that feel of college sports. That will not change. I had faith that would not change. I think that's been validated so far. Maybe I won't be right a year, 2, 5 years from now. But do you get that feeling too, especially in these big-time Big Ten environments that you get to go in every week?
Yeah, I mean, Brett, it's ever evolving, as you're alluding to. And so who knows what it looks like in 5 and 10 and 15 years. But I was talking to Daniel Jeremiah about this, who, of course, NFL Network, and then is the Chargers radio analyst. And so when I was doing the Chargers preseason, we were just talking about how different it is now. And as we continued with the conversation about NIL and transfers and this and that, he goes, tell you what, though, they don't rush the field when we win in San Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah.
I go, it's a good point. And he's accurate, because when I go to Autzen Stadium last year to do Ohio State, Oregon, it's different. When I'm going this year and we have a Penn State game, it's different. Michigan, different. Ohio State. When I did SEC games, did Georgia at Auburn the first year Georgia won their title, felt different. Even going to Arkansas, it just all of those, you add up and you feel it. So yeah, and then I think the other part of it that changes is, look, there are guys who are in the NFL that are great stories about how they got there and God knows whatever else, all of the maybe hardships or people didn't believe in them. I mean, J.J. Watt is a prime example of it, obviously, who becomes a first ballot Hall of Famer. But a lot of that story was in college, where he had to go to a different school, Central Michigan, and then transfer to Wisconsin as a walk-on, and then work his way up to become one of the best in the league. But he was a first-round pick. Great example is I had done a game early this season, Michigan State hosting Boston College, double overtime, and the touchdown in OT goes to Jay Coyne, who was not recruited, walked on as a defensive end. They transfer him over to fullback, and he caught one of the most important passes of the entire game as a former walk-on DN playing fullback. It's not a story that you necessarily get in the NFL. And so even with the NIL, the transfers and everything like that, those still exist. Dom DeLuca is a walk-on who became a multi-time captain at Penn State. That's not an NFL story. And so you just have to go looking for them. But you definitely have it. And when you get to those environments on a big game, you can certainly feel it.
Noah, we wish you the best. Thank you so much for your time coming on the pod here today. Hopefully, John Tesh's brother will get redemption, and the lyrics for Bubba Bubba Basketball will be included in NBC's Roundball Rock. But thank you so much, my friend, for the perspective and the time as always. And can't wait to see what you're going to be doing on the NBA on NBC, and continued luck and success to you, my friend.
Appreciate it. I'm already out to Jason Sudeikis for the fake facial hair he wore. So once I get that, we'll be all set and ready to go.
Thanks again to my man Noah Eagle, NBC Sports. He has got quite a task ahead of him as the NBA is back on NBC, one of the great broadcasters out there. So he used to be up and coming or rising, and now he's just one of the best out there, the latest in the line of so many Syracuse broadcasters out there kicking ass and taking names. And it's always great to catch up with Noah and just see where life takes him. He is truly, as we mentioned, living the dream right now. You're living the dream as a Syracuse sports insider, getting all the latest news, information, opinion, and analysis from me. You sending your insight, questions, analysis, opinions. Brent, what's going on? Just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU sports. That's what that Syracuse Sports Insider text line is for. Cut through the clutter, cut through the noise, cut through social media. Just send it directly to me via text message. We send you everything that we have in terms of breaking news, opinion, questions that I ask you guys. You get exclusive voice on this podcast, by the way, on our Syracuse football post-game shows, coming soon on our Syracuse basketball post-game shows, and on the pod itself as well. We don't take comments from anywhere else, only our Syracuse Sports Insiders, even some that have the secret voicemail line, get their voice heard on the pod. So we'd love for you to sign up today. We'd love to hear more of your original music here on Syracuse Sports as well. Love to highlight the independent artists and bands out there and give them a little exposure, if you will. Let the insiders know, let our Syracuse Sports pod listeners know some of the great music that's out there in the community, not only here in Syracuse, but wherever Syracuse sports fans are out there. And we love to highlight your original music here on the show. So get in touch. All the info is in the show notes on how you can do that. My thanks to Noah Eagle for joining us. My thanks to you for joining us. And I hope you enjoy your off weekend as a Syracuse football fan. They'll be back at it against Pitt October 18th, and our Syracuse football postgame show to follow. But let's let him take us out. We heard a little bit of this song earlier. Now let's listen to it in its entirety. Max Sheldon and Hello Blue Skies. That sounds nice, right? It's been unseasonably warm here in central New York. We've had a lot of blue skies, and we've been enjoying it. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon here on Syracuse Sports, presented by Krause Health.